Yo, 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 yo. I appreciate anybody that comes into this video. Welcome to another show of the UnkkTv podcast. It's a little loud. Let me check my levels. How's everybody doing? Ain't nobody here, but I'm gonna talk to you like you are here. How y'all? Heller. I don't know if you guys read, but what we're gonna be talking about is integration or desegregation. This really is in response to D.L. Hughley's, in my opinion, ignorant and unfactual response to Trevor Noah's podcast, where professor basically gave her her opinion on why desegregation of public schooling really wasn't desegregation alone was not the answer to the problem with the public schooling in America. And really, we're gonna look at DL's response to it, and then we're gonna look at a couple of clips or videos, parts of the entire podcast. We're not gonna look at the entire podcast, but we're gonna look at certain parts of the podcast and see where her point of view was coming from, and actually look at what she said versus what DL said, and how easy it is for narratives to be spun and not really be based in any sort of fact, or really even respond to anything the things that she said. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to start out looking at DL's response to said podcast. Bear with me and we will see what I'm trying to show you. Let's see. Bear with me one moment. Why is it not working for me right now? It's so lit. I love when things start freezing up when I'm trying to do a podcast. It's so perfect. So let's see if this one, which one is gonna work for me, baby? Oh, you gotta love technology. And this is good that no one else is here, so watch this. Come on, baby, work with me. Okay, so that's weird. That's not it. So let's see if I can do this.
Oh, you tell me stories, you tuck me in, and the second you leave, I call you right back to check for my sis in my sheets. Yeah, high school was hard.
We're almost there, y'all. Just bear with me.
I fall asleep to the screaming, sound machine always speaking. left emotional scars. Now I'm 20, a soul of 50 years. And now that you are gone, I'm doing things that I shouldn't know from. I'm doing things that I shouldn't do. That's what
Boy, whoo! We almost there, y'all. We got it. All right. All right, let me turn this down over here. All right, boom. Let's check levels again. All right, we looking good. It's late o'clock, but we don't care.
The stupidest thing I've ever. And first off, I've heard enough from South Africans this year. That's enough. I'm like, okay. So Elon Musk and Trump. I don't need to hear about race from two dudes from South Africa. I heard enough. Black schools and HBCUs and our system exist. And she could have said that virtually about every system that exists in America, from policing to banking to housing. Every single one is inundated with white supremacy. All of it. So, and the thing that I find that I resent the most is that our story always starts in the middle. HBCUs came as a result of what we couldn't have. Everywhere we live, every black neighborhood is where we were told to live. Everywhere. Even school, like they want integration some places. I bet you want it in the Super Bowl, because without black people, that shit would be rugby. So it's an interesting conversation to have, except that I think the outcome, I mean where she lands is a bit disingenuous. You can't just talk about education, because the only reason you get educated is to indoctrinate yourself, is to be involved in another system.
My understanding was one of the underlying reasons why it was so important to integrate schools is because black schools were grossly underfunded.
And still are.
And still are. But by integrating, you're creating more of a level playing field where everybody's in the same school.
It should be the same.
What happened was whatever schools white kids could go to, when black kids started going there, they left and they took their resources with them. So they in fact became, look at every school, look at all the schools we go to that at one time, integration meant that we could come, and they left. Not only did they leave, they took their resources. So this notion that integration ever existed was wrong. White flight happened as soon as integration.
All right, so I'm going to restart this so you guys can see from the beginning what he's saying and the points that he's making, right? And part of me wants to make an adjustment of what I said initially at the beginning, because I did come off a little hot, right? So I want, the point in watching this video is to show how you can't, a lot of times people will take concrete facts and distort it in response to something as like a battering ram to shut up dissent or what they consider as dissent, because I don't believe what the professor, we'll see, I'm blanking on her name, but we're going to refer to her title as professor, even though she shows that she's not necessarily she doesn't abide by that moniker totally. She said, you'll see what we're talking about. But again, how they take facts, distort it in an emotional way to basically force people to be quiet and comply with the narrative that is out there without really giving a true thought or giving space for thought to even be had of what is being said. So again, just bear with me. Let's check this out.
That may be the stupidest thing I've ever. And first off, I've heard enough from South Africans this year. That's enough. I'm like, between Elon Musk and Trump, I don't need to hear about race from two dudes from South Africa. I heard enough. Black schools and HBCUs and our system exist. And she could have said that virtually about every system that exists in America, from policing to banking to housing. Every single one is inundated with white supremacy. All of it. So, and the thing that I find that I resent the most is that our story always starts in the middle. HBCUs came as a result of what we couldn't have. Everywhere we live, every black neighborhood is where we were told to live. Everywhere. Even school, like they want integration someplace. I bet you want it in the Super Bowl, because without black people, that shit would be rugby. So it's an interesting conversation to have, except that I think the outcome, I mean, where she lands is a bit disingenuous. You can't just talk about education, because the only reason you get educated is to indoctrinate yourself, is to be involved in those other systems.
My understanding was one of the underlying reasons why it was so important to integrate schools is because black schools were grossly underfunded.
And still are.
And still are. But by integrating...
Now, I want y'all to remember him acknowledging black schools are still underfunded. But the idea that desegregation was not the answer is a stupid idea. Over 50 years later, desegregation took place before I was born, and it still hasn't solved what was the true problem back then. He's admitting that even in his response, but he's going to call her stupid.
You're creating more of a level playing field where everybody's in the same school.
It should be the same.
What happened was whatever schools white kids could go to, when black kids started going there, they left and they took their resources with them. So they, in fact, became. Look at every school. Look at all the schools we go to that at one time, integration meant that we could come, and they left. Not only did they leave, they took their resources. So this notion that integration ever existed was wrong. White flight happened as soon as integration started. And with them, they took their resources. So we still, in effect, have virtually the same thing.
And I remember vividly
Virtually
the
the
early
same thing.
60s
So what are we talking about?
You know, people getting beaten over the heads with...
He said we still have virtually the same thing, but it's telling this academic who has... I'm getting animated. Let me chill. I'm gonna just let this play out.
batons. I remember Mississippi and Alabama, where they wouldn't let black kids into schools. It's better today. There's still racism, but it has gotten better.
It's gotten better, but we have failing schools. It's gotten better, but our schools are still underfunded. What's better about it?
That is undeniable. When we try to put someone, Ruby Bridges, who integrated schools in Alabama, Louisiana, is still alive. She's 71. She's still alive. So what America tends to do is act like it's so long ago. Yes, they don't wear hoods, and maybe they don't do the things that they did before. But some of it is still so entrenched, some of it's so insidious that I think that people. This is my honest assessment of it. I don't think most white people agree with the motives of white supremacists and white nationalists. I don't think they like their words, but I think they agree with their goals, which is to keep white people in charge. I think that they don't agree with their motives, they don't might not agree with their terminology or their verbiage, but they most certainly agree that white people should be in charge.
So that's D.L. Hughley's response to the podcast that we're about to go into. So bear with me. Let me do this. Oh, we should do a rap.
Ain't nobody perfect.
Ain't nobody perfect.
Ain't nobody perfect. Ain't nobody perfect.
Let's get into this.
Just tells us, this thing that we think of as universal and inevitable, in a different context, there's a whole different set of, these parallel realities in a way. And I was a sci-fi nerd starting at about a teenager, moving to the martial art.
So, I got notes and we're gonna jump ahead, right? Because I'm trying to be better with this, right? I want to be. I don't want to like give them these people. I don't want my content to be solely based on other people's content. But I don't mind it being in response to their content, right? So this beautiful young woman, I don't know what her name is. Let me. I should have had that beforehand. Shame on me for not being prepared. Charge my heart, not my head, please. Or charge it to my head, not my heart. I don't know what the saying is. But one moment. Rua Benjamin. Professor Rua Benjamin. I believe she is either at Princeton or Columbia. Which one? One of these prestigious establishments. Let me see. Psychologist.
Michigan State, Michigan. This is a crazy pass. Danny Wolf.
They're gonna go into it. I'm not gonna preliminary to the time. Let's get into this. We're gonna start at this point. Here we go. Ooh.
Sometimes I feel like I am more likely to dunk the basketball than to be able to do this. PGA Mexico Open, that's Joe Damon.
Let's see.
Work has drawn you into everything. You know, your degrees, your qualifications, your expertise, the amount of time you spend on it, your books. So maybe the first thing we should jump into
is DEI. Has DEI failed? Was it bound to fail?
Yeah, I was never a big booster of DEI. So to see it coming down, I feel for those who were genuinely invested in that as a potential to transform institutions and industries. But it always felt like a concession, a placeholder for something that could be more transformative. And so, like with placeholders, I think they become permanent as opposed to being a stepping stone. It becomes this kind of, safe way of corralling those who would sort of cause trouble.
Right.
And And so, you could say it was bound to fail, or you could say it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. And so I think we shouldn't be satisfied with kind of these sort of token, fleeting forms of attention, because as we're seeing now, they come and go very quickly. So many of the people who were hired under DEI programs, after the killing of George Floyd are now losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Entire programs are going up in smoke. So I think we should rethink what our demands are.
Ruha, it's interesting you say that. The thing that made me come across you, not first, but a very viral moment, you gave a commencement speech at your alma mater, Spelman College, and you said black faces in high places will not save us. And for some people who really believe in like representation politics, they jut up against that idea. They think, no, we need black faces in high spaces. What brought you to that conclusion? Because it's a very radical one. And also like, I would say kind of cynical as well. And which I'm a cynical person, but I'm just interested about what about your life path brought you to that place. It doesn't matter if it's a black person at the top.
Yes.
This system is rotten.
So many stories I could tell. One is, as a graduate student, I was in that kind of position of being enrolled to be the black face of a scientific program that was trying to recruit more Black patients to undergo a very experimental treatment. So I was enrolled to be that person that was supposed to help win over the trust of this community that was needed for this program. And it was a very uncomfortable position because I was, at the one hand,
I've been talking this whole time, y'all didn't hear me. Oh, no!
On a pedestal, but at the same time, very vulnerable, because if I had said no, then I would have lost access to X, Y, and Z. So one is my own complicity. Then very recently, in the last year, in my own institution, I've observed how Black administrators in particular are really being called on to do the dirty work, to write the threatening emails, to call students who are demanding an end to genocide aggressive and angry and a threat. And so it's not the white president, but a whole flank of Black administrators who are the ones who are really doing the work of these institutions to repress free speech and dissent. And I think that is very strategic, because when that is the face of the message, people perhaps who believe in representational politics may be less likely to question it, be critical of it.
And this is what it's kind of funny that I said a whole bunch of stuff. It was, the mic is muted, so it wasn't caught. It's so funny. But boom, she hit the nail right on the head. If you think about it, think about how many Black police captains, sheriffs that we have in positions of power that are not changing how police work within a community, right? You look at in places like Atlanta, right? Majority Black city, right? Where Black people understand the overreach of police power, right? We understand that how quickly interactions with the police can go from a simple traffic stop to solely because you're exercising your right not to answer any questions. Now everyone is outside of the car, and your car is being searched for whatever reason, right? You don't have black police officers in positions of power saying, from this point forward, when it comes to traffic stops, unless cops are able to point out to concrete evidence of suspicion of specific crimes, right? It's not just suspicion for the sake of suspicion. Suspicion of a specific crime, right? There's leafy substance in wherever, so that's why we asked you to get out of the car, not for officer safety. When there has been nothing that has been done that should put the question of whether or not the officer safety is in question, right? There's no black officers or black sheriffs that are leading the way on this, because if there was one, the police department would revolt against him because they're limiting our power and making it hard for us to do our job. When really, if it's a traffic stop and I don't want to answer any questions, give me my ticket and let me go. Your safety is not in question because I don't want to be a participant in your investigation. You don't like that I'm not answering your questions. You feel that is a challenge to your authority, and you haven't been trained to deal with someone that knows their rights and is not just knows their right, but they have the right to exercise said right. That's not you. How many times have we seen a video of a police officer say, "I don't care what your rights are," whenever, even when it's clear that police officers are in the wrong, the police department will tell you it's best for you to abide and allow them to trample your rights, and then have your day in court. What? Do you know how long it takes for the courts to work? Why would I set myself up for a prolonged process when you, as the infrastructure and the black face of this entity, could just set the standard and eliminate all of these potentials of wrongdoing by your police departments? Because I done went into another wormhole. But again, that just is a prime example of having black faces in high places does not equate actual change, does not equate actual benefit to the said population that we need faces in the high places. It's just a band-aid over a pile of dog crap, really. And it speaks to why you have so many, it speaks to why you have so many black police captains and sheriffs and deputies that once they do get into positions of power, that power corrupts them. What was it? Sheriff Hall from Clayton County, or what was that captain out of Arizona, the Phoenix, Arizona, the female captain who ended up deleting text messages that she had a court order not to delete because I'm going down another wormhole. Again, black faces in high places does not equate actual progress in whatever organization that you're talking about, whether it be academia, policing, or even in the government. Prime example, Jasmine Crockett. I don't see what the benefit of having her in there outside of her being funny, her being example of sophistication. But her voting policy, funding Israel isn't going to bring dollars to your underfunded school in Texas. Voting, even right now, if they vote, if these black faces in high places in Congress don't shut the government down to prevent Trump from doing what he's trying to do, there is no benefit to having black faces in high places. If they're not recognizing that underfunding the what is it, FAA, or whatever organization is over the air traffic control, if we're not empowering these entities to, one, hire more people, bringing more people out of poverty, and which would then, add more money to the economy that isn't just going to the top 1%. I'm spinning again. Let's get back to this.
To push back against it. So it's really a way of insulating business as usual with a cosmetic veneer of change and progress and inclusion that I really believe we have to look past and look through in order to see what's actually going on.
I can imagine, as I'm listening to you say these two things about diversity, the first part of it is, I can imagine a lot of people who don't share your politics cheering with you, first of all, because I think of people like Elon Musk who have said, no, he's like, we don't want diversity.
Yeah.
We want the best people for the job, and that's it. And stop hiring diversity. Boeing planes are crashing because of the blacks.
Yeah.
The blacks don't know how to screw doors in.
I don't think that should be reason for folks to not speak truth. Right? Just because what I'm saying is parroted by the likes of Ben Shapiro doesn't invalidate the point that was made. Ben Shapiro is a clown, and even a broken clock can be wrong, right, twice a day, or whatever the saying is. But we're gonna skip ahead to this next part. Let's see what this.
But it was there to make the institutions feel good about themselves. And so again, when we're offered two choices, exclusion or inclusion, we always have to ask ourselves what's being left off the table.
I actually had a follow-up.
Point.
You have
Message.
been an activist alongside the students in the pro-Palestine movement, kind of becoming the professorial face of this movement at Princeton. And because of
Princeton, that's where you're
your
from.
stance, you've been suspended. And that is what you're talking about when you're talking about black administrators and the protests against genocide, etc., in the light of diversity and inclusion. Can you speak more about that? Because you're putting your career on the line, and
Absolutely.
there's people out there, but like, what's Palestine got to do with you? So
Yeah.
I'm really curious about that.
I'm happy to. And just quick clarification, I'm on probation for a year, specifically for accompanying the students in a sit-in that took place in the spring. And I went in because they were concerned about, one, police brutality that we'd been witnessing at Columbia and other places, and also because up until that point, the administration was really distorting their activities and their motives. And so they wanted a kind of objective faculty observer, but the administration has rejected that status and just said, I was with them, and so now I'm on probation. And so, to think about, again, at the very moment you mentioned the MacArthur, the day before I received the call from MacArthur that I won this award in September, I had just had a very tense call with the administration that was essentially investigating my role. And so when the award was announced, it was all over the university website, all of the accolades. So they take credit. And at the same time, they're investigating me for basically acting on what I was hired to do.
Damn.
And so they're happy for it to stay theory. They're happy for it to stay on the page. But when you start actually living what you're writing and studying about, then it becomes a problem. And so that is, again, this disjunction between liking things to be controlled in the way that will benefit them. But as soon as you start to challenge them, then they try to put you in your place. Try being.
And my point again, this is why the people that are in high places, they are there because they are safe for the establishment. They are not there to make any sort of change, right? Let's think about even with Trump. Walmart's not worried about their bottom dollar. They're talking about how they're servicing a new class of people that make at least $100,000 a year. That's not their demographic. That was Target's demographic. And because people are so upset with Target and how they were so outwardly, we're inclusive. And we have this whole black section for black businesses and black women and inclusivity. As soon as Trump came in, they bent the knee and had Tabitha Brown out there like, oh no, let's not hurt black businesses. Ma'am, what are you talking about? The bare minimum that they did do. Now, within 3, 4, 5 years, they were rolling it back. It wasn't real. And she's out there putting her, and I love Tabitha. I hate that they did that to her. You know, I understand, I understand that when you get into these stores, your pay structure is more of paying rent to them, and then on the back end, we're not gonna go into that. You pay shelf. I know we got to touch it. When these black businesses go into these giga corporations, they are paying rent for the shelf space, right? So when they have these black sections, these black businesses that oftentimes will sell to giga corporations once they get into these places, but I'm not saying that Tabitha did that. But they're paying rent for these shelf spaces. Not only are they paying rent for these shelf spaces, they only get paid for the half of the amount that, and this is just my understanding from wherever I get my understanding from, and I'm not going to tell you because I don't trust y'all niggas. But when you get into these giga corporations, you get half of the money for the order that they get request of you. Not only that, there's like a time period, whether it be 9 months or not 9 months, 3 months, 6 months, however the time period is, that you're waiting for the other half, and the other half, what you get from the other half is based off of the refunds that they get back and the amount that is left over from that time period. So if a lot of these corporations, you can return anything, you know, within, for whatever reason. You know, I know there was somebody, this is me going down another rabbit hole, but you can return things for whatever reason. And now you as the entity that wants to get into this giga corporation, now you're stuck with whatever metrics and numbers they give you, and they dictate for how successful your product was on their shelf. And a lot of times you look at how Master P was done when he went into Walmart, they'll say that your stuff is on shelves, you go in to look for it and it's not available on the shelves, and but they're still charging you rent to that, like you are on the shelf, and each store isn't ran the same. So black faces in hot places are safe for whatever entity that is putting them up there.
The operative word.
You spoke about this, you know, in that.
All right, so we're gonna skip ahead to this next part. Bear with me.
I don't give them my all, and so they can't take anything from me in doing this either.
Wow.
Let's talk a little bit more about institutions themselves, you know, specifically institutions of higher learning. On previous episodes of the podcast, you know, we've talked to, you know, historians like, let's say, Yuval Noah Harari.
And, you know, we've talked to people like Ta-Nehisi Coates, and we've talked to, and obviously because of the time we're in, Israel-Palestine comes up, but then many other issues come up, and that one overshadows some of the other conversations that are as prominent in different ways, yes. Right? The one thing I found myself wrestling with over the past few months is how universities have failed, in my opinion, to be the bastion of conversation that moves people in a direction. And what I mean by this is, you remember, Christiana, this was even when we were still at the Daily Show. I didn't like that universities were blocking people like Ben Shapiro from coming to speak, right? And the reason for it was because at the time people were like, no, we don't want him to come. He's a Nazi. We don't want this, blah, blah, blah. So forget how you feel about him or not. The thing I kept on saying was, if a university cannot immunize its students to the ideas of a quote-unquote radical person, let's say, depending on how you look at them, then what is the point of a university? Like, I feel like that's supposed to be the boxing ground where we go. It's almost like you want your kids to come back from school and say, hey, today we fought with each other about apartheid, and, we fought about whether or not people should be segregated, and we fought about, what's happening in the Middle East. But in our school, they teach us how to fight because there is a constructive way to do it. And I wonder, from your perspective, what you think we're missing in higher learning institutions, that now it doesn't seem like the kids or the faculty or the institution itself have the ability to facilitate something that society definitely can't.
Yeah, I think that's, there's layers to it, because I don't necessarily think it's a new phenomenon, that this sort of lack of capacity to engender constructive conversation. I would say that is distinct from the kind of debate bro style of someone like Shapiro, where it is very combative. It's not about us gaining knowledge together, but it's really about me winning.
Oh, it's about owning people.
Yeah, definitely. We should be able to wrestle with difficult conversations. And so I think part of, the exceptionalism around Palestine that we've seen in the last year in particular has a lot to do with the idealization of what the university should be, which it hasn't ever been for the vast majority of people, and really the economic underpinnings of these institutions. One person described it as a hedge fund that offers classes. So to really think about, really this idea that these are this Enlightenment model of learning, and so much of it is profit driven, and these profits are deeply intertwined with the military industrial complex, weapons manufacturers. Like, it's not just about disclosing and divesting specifically when it comes to Israel-Palestine, but the fact that these institutions are in bed with the military, so that the calling into question of that entire infrastructure is really like getting to the foundation of what's holding these places up. And so the crackdown that we think, oh, this is so disproportionate. These students are just trying to talk about this or that. It's because what they're talking about is really getting to the foundations of what's holding these institutions up.
We're going to
now. I wanted to take a deeper look, not too much into exactly what she's talking about, right? I believe she's referring to how the crackdown on the protests that were happening at schools like Columbia, Princeton, more specifically Columbia, right? Now, there was a crackdown at her school, Princeton, but what happened in Columbia was complete and utter ridiculous, right? They were trying to pose protests that were happening in response to Israel's genocidal actions in Palestine. They're trying to paint that as the demonstrations that were there as like terrorism, basically equating everything to anti-Semitism, when really, if you want to say it's anti-anything, it's anti-Zionism, right? At this point, we've accepted that the state of Israel exists. There's nothing that can be done about it. But what I will not accept is the ever-expanding narrative of what is Israel. Not only that, the ever-expanding monies that is given to this country that allows rapists to settle in the country under the guise of the right to return, that allow just the rape and pillage of Palestinians' land, homes, rights, and whatever under the blue moon you wanted to base. It's literally endless. Zionism is so perverse. You have Israelis shooting at other Israeli. You have Israeli. No, I don't even know if he was an Israeli Jew. He could be an American-born Jew shooting at actual Israeli Jews who are just here vacationing in Florida. And he's shooting, and he's proud to say that he was shooting at Palestinians when for it to turn out, he was shooting at Israeli Jews. They weren't Palestinians. But now let's look at what happened back in the Vietnam War, right? What was the realities, or what was going on a college campus during the Vietnam War effort, and the response that the students had, and what they did, and how long their protest was during that period of time. Bear with me. You know your boy just loves his slides. This is a video from YouTube. Let's take a watch.
The year was 1968. The Vietnam War raged on. Liberal uprisings took hold in Czechoslovakia. The civil rights movement intensified. Across the globe, people cried out for radical change. In the US, these cries rang out across many college campuses as students pushed for civil rights and demanded an end to the Vietnam War and the draft. These sentiments translated into activism and demonstrations, many of which ended in violence. Such was the case at Columbia University in April 1968. In February 1968, Columbia University began construction on an $11.6 million gymnasium in Morningside Park, part of the Harlem neighborhood that houses Columbia's main campus in New York City. Almost immediately, there was objection. Students and activists argued the gym discriminated against Harlem residents by evicting and displacing them to build the structure. The gym would be built with a main entrance that catered to students and university affiliates. But local Harlem residents, many of whom were Black, could use part of the facilities but would have to enter through a back door in the basement. Many interpret this as segregation and racism. Among the gym's fiercest opponents was Columbia's Student Afro-American Society, founded in 1964. Members of the SAS labeled the construction project Jim Crow and enlisted help from other Black activists in the Harlem community and throughout New York. While the SAS worked to halt construction of the gym, another campus organization, Students for a Democratic Society, or the SDS, was building a case against the university's apparent involvement in the Vietnam War. In 1967, one SDS member, Bob Feldman, found documents in the school library showing ties between the university and a think tank involved in weapons research for the U.S. Department of Defense, known as the Institute for Defense Analyses, or IDA. Many saw this as the university directly supporting the war in Vietnam. In the spring of 1968, the SDS, led by then-chairman Mark Rudd, organized a rally against the university. Their rallying cry? Students would not attend a university that exploited Black people and developed weapons designed to kill the Vietnamese. On April 23, 1968, several hundred Columbia students gathered in front of Lowe Memorial Library, the university's main administrative building. They attempted to take their message inside to University President Grayson L. Kirk, but the administration locked the building down. So, the group marched to the gymnasium construction site and tore down part of the fencing that surrounded it. The police moved to disperse the crowd, arresting one student in the process. Then, protesters staged a sit-in at an administrative building, preventing Dean Henry Coleman from leaving his office. They presented a list of 6 demands. 2 included stopping construction on the gym and severing ties with the IDA. The students promised not to leave until their demands were met. The students eventually released Dean Coleman the next day, but their numbers had grown upwards of 400. They took over the Low Library and 3 additional buildings on campus. Students and community members sympathetic to the cause brought food and other supplies. The university tried to negotiate an end to the standoff over the next several days, but the administration refused to promise amnesty to the protesters, and no agreement was reached. Over the course of the week, the numbers of protesters grew, until finally on April 30th, police, acting on orders from school president Kirk, moved in and forcefully cleared all 5 buildings.
Now, I brought this up to show how back in the day, when students was protesting, they shut stuff down. You look at what happened in not earlier. What is this? This is almost a year and a half now ago. They weren't able to get to this point, and that's because the power structure moved in quickly and to prevent anything getting to this point. Not only that, they had the media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Breitbart, all characterizing these protests universally as anti-Semitic. It's just anti-Semitic, not giving any airtime to what is actually happening. How a lot of times it was these dirty old Zionists coming to provoke and mace children, and these police officers was just allowing it to happen because the power structure said allow them to do it. But you know, it is what it is. 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 What it is.
Amid the chaos.
So let's go back to this. We're gonna jump ahead again. I had another point that I wanted to make, but I'm not gonna preliminary the time.
Continue this conversation.
You waited, I do. All right. Yep. We're just gonna let this rock out.
Right after this short break. Yeah, I was thinking about it for a whole host of topics. Like, let's say Donald Trump, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm often surprised when I meet people who cannot understand why anyone would vote for Donald Trump. I go, you mean you have no, they're like, I just don't get it. How could you? Then I'm like, what do you mean, how could you? You may not agree with the person, but surely you should be able to see that this person is identifying an issue and they see Donald Trump as the solution to this issue, right? So even if you erase your...
Okay, my bad, y'all. I forgot to put the... But I'm going to keep it right here. What Trevor is talking about right now is choose the choice to not completely demonize people you don't agree with, right? To put yourself in a position to where you're trying to come to not just emote and persecute, you're an idiot, you're a racist, you're a bigot, and you really shouldn't be listened to because what you're saying is not smart. It's not fact-based. It's really emotional. Even though we're both being emotional because neither one of us are trying to get to some sort of resolution. We're just screaming at each other. What what he's talking about is getting to a point of understanding of where people are coming from so that we can work towards an end goal where we both get, if we don't get all we want, we get something similar or close to what we want as possible, right? When you demonize Trump voters, you eliminate the possibility of building coalition. That's what it all boils down to. If we want to really get to a world where there's some sort of harmony amongst people, at least the poor's got to start working together. And if you make less than $500,000 a year, that's too much. If you make less than $125,000 a year, you are poor. You are closer to being, really, you could be a millionaire and you are still considered poor because you are closer to us than you are to the top 1%. So that's me spinning again. Let's not spin. Let's stick to the message. We need to get to the point where we're able to get to the point where we can have conversation. And it's not just about me being right. It's not just about me expressing how I feel. We have to get to a point where we're coming to a place where we agree, right? I remember being in college. This was around... I'm aging. Well, I'm not that old anyways. This is like early 2014, 2015. I think Trayvon Martin was the hot topic then, right? And the idea of Black Lives Matter, which I felt was the weakest, most ineffective campaign one could ever make. If my life matters, if Black Lives Matter, you don't have to say that. That's just like in Game of Thrones when what was the young king? He wasn't, his council wasn't listening to him, and he was yelling, "I am the king." If you are the king, you should not have to say that you are the king. If Black Lives Matter, you should not have to say Black Lives Matter. It's a weak position to be from. Black Lives Matter. Stand up, nigga. Show them that Black Lives Matter. If Black Lives Matter, that's a conversation for another day. I'm telling you, I could spin, man. But I remember being in college and having white people that I refuse to believe that they are just evil people, right? Because they came up to, I was known to always be having political conversations, having debates, whether it be with black people I agree with, white people I agree with, white people I disagree with, black people I disagree with, Hispanics. Anybody at that time at Hudson Valley could have got it and would have gotten it. You know what I'm saying? But I remember having white people come up to me and be like, "Explain Black Lives Matter to me." And my thought was always, well, what do you not understand? And they will always go into, well, don't white lives matter? It's like, where in Black Lives Matter does it say that white lives doesn't matter? Well, I mean, it doesn't say that yeah, but where does it say they don't matter? You know what I'm saying? These people are saying Black Lives Matter because they believe you don't believe Black Lives Matter. And they're yelling it at you. This is an emotional response to years and years of police brutality, police misconduct, and just outright corruption. And the school that we went to was in Troy, New York. One of the most corrupt police departments, full stop. Full stop. I had to go up there, it's spinning again, but I had to go up there to handle a speeding ticket that was from 2015 that I shouldn't have got, but because I was dealing with a corrupt police officer who rightfully pulled over my coworker who was speeding, but wanted to get the extra notch under his belt, gave me a ticket that I did not deserve. And I had to, and me being the person that I am, I will spend more money going to fight that ticket, go up to Albany, be in a cold, have to get a coat from my uncle just to fight something that I knew I wasn't guilty of, and I went up there, and I don't know if the dude was yo, Unc in the building. Hey! Shout out to Unc. Everybody get Unc. He the one that he the reason why his name UnkkTv. I be talking to him and niggas call me Unc, so it's like me what I be talking, how I feel talking to him. I want y'all to talk. I want it to be how me talking to y'all, whatever. But yeah, I spend more money going up there to fight a ticket versus just paying the money for the fine and allow the narrative that I was out here just rambling and running, speeding through Troy, New York. Like, nah, please miss me with that. I pay that bread. I have no problem with that. Miss me with that one.
Your politics, just for a moment.
Yeah.
The issue will remain, right? So the factory job is
I don't
gone.
think I finished that thought process.
The land is now, barren. There's more pollution, birth rates, you name it. The issue is going to remain regardless of the politics. But I don't know. I find myself constantly in conversations with people who cannot even begin to fathom the possibility of another human seeing the world differently or seeing the same thing but coming to a different conclusion on how to repair it.
Trevor, we the three of us and many others like us, we have to navigate a world that was not built for us. So by a matter of survival, we have to take other people's position. We have to know how we're being seen at all times in order to navigate, to stay out of danger. It's a capacity that we have grown, we've had to grow. So we're constantly shifting positions. We have language for this. Du Bois called double consciousness, looking through different lenses. And so this is part of how we see the world, is not to only see it through our own lens. And so the fact that people cannot switch perspective is a luxury. It's a privilege that means you can only navigate the world only through your lens. You don't have to take other people's positions. So when it comes to something like the Trump phenomenon, or just thinking about what on the outside appears like hate and vitriol and evil even, part of what we have to reckon with is how from the inside of that perspective, it's not experienced as hate and vitriol. In some cases, it's actually affinity, love. People are bonding over these perspectives and outlooks. And so I remember a few years ago, I saw this really heartbreaking video, this element.
Think about how QAnon took off, right? It was... people fell for the narrative that kids were being raped at a pizza parlor, and some goofball went from some dump in the middle of the country, some flyover state, all the way to DC, shot up the pizza parlor, all to find out there's no basement. But he was so moved by the thought that there were kids in the basement of this pizza parlor that he would travel a great distance and get himself locked up. There's reason for that. I'm not saying everybody is worth giving a listening to or giving them space to, because not everybody is for you, and not everybody is. People that you're in proximity to, you gotta grow to a understanding with, right? Now there are red lines, and a lot of red lines have been crossed, right? But to totally shun folks and not have an understanding, right? Some people, you having an understanding for them is just seeing that they have a blinder, right? I had a friend that I went with. His mom worked as a school teacher, and his dad worked as a social worker with my mother for the social services. And he was talking about how when we grew up, he ended up becoming like a real strong Trump supporter, and he was talking about how people are mooching off the system. It's like, bro, your entire existence would be nothing without the system. Your parents both got state jobs. Without the state, you would be nothing. Y'all wouldn't have that big old house in the middle of nowhere. You wouldn't be able to travel and go snowboarding like you did so much when you were younger. So just because somebody is benefiting from another portion of state sponsor or whatever, doesn't mean that it's anything different from you. You know, your parents work. These other people don't have the ability to work. They don't have the capacity to work. Whatever the case may be. And let's not act like your parents were hard workers either. A lot of these people get state jobs and they get that tenure and then they just coast. You know what I'm saying? They're making their money, they're making their living, and they're coasting. They're not. I don't went down another rabbit hole, but that goes down to the narrative. Oh, we gotta people don't deserve things. Man, don't nobody deserve nothing, but we got it. Shut up, man.
Cafeteria scene of kids that I think it was right after he was elected the first time. These kids were chanting, build that wall. And they were pointing at this little Latino boy in the cafeteria, build that wall, build that wall.
Damn.
And so I was thinking about not just those kids, but the parents of those kids who see the building of that wall, the bordering of our world, not as an evil infrastructure, not as motivated by hate, but motivated by a distorted form of love for their own children.
Right.
So the idea that we have to do this to protect our children, their jobs, their futures, it's really this what Fanon would call like this perverse form of love. I remember reading as a grad student a book called Women in the Klan that was talking about women's very prominent role in the Ku Klux Klan. And, you know, this...
Hashtag diversity, hashtag inclusion.
Exactly.
I just want to acknowledge them.
Thank you. Point. And how, you know, the ethnographer who really infiltrated and went inside these organizations and befriended, in quotes, these women, she writes about how, you know, they had potlucks, they took care of each other's kids, you know, there was so much affinity and love in the inside that then got expressed by who they hated. Like they bonded over who they hated.
Right.
So unless we can understand that, the kind of internal workings, then we only think of it as what is experienced from the outside. We won't get to the root of the problem, which is people seeking bonds with other human beings, but only being able to do it by having something to be against. And that is not inevitable, right? That's just what with the pattern, but it's not inevitable.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned elementary school students because I thought of little expelled Trevor.
But I must clearly state I should have been expelled.
Okay. So they were right.
For the record. For the record.
So
I was not doing anything.
So a lot of what I feel needs to be done is coalition building. I think a lot of black thought is limited because it's grounded and rooted in that we need to do this for black people, when in all actuality it's, if we do anything for black people, it's going to be stopped by the white power structure. If we build coalition and every civil right that was gained since the 1950s was on the backs of black people. Affirmative action that benefited white people, white women, on the backs of blacks. Desegregation, everybody and their mama, immigrants, you know, whites were able to go wherever they wanted to, but Hispanics, broadly, in all of Asia, anyone that comes here and is able to go to a school and not have to worry about, you know, redlining, that's on the backs of black people. But sad thing is, the idea of us getting reparations. Well, I'm not even. Reparation is totally different because there are subgroups that or demographics that got their reparations. So the reparations are still going to come. But beyond that, we have to build coalitions so that we are to boost our numbers, so that everybody can benefit from what we're getting. Because really, we're all getting. I'm trying not to. I joined the church, so we're limiting our. I don't want to cuss out here as like I used to. You know what I'm saying? But we're all being taken advantage of. We're all not respected by the corporate overlords. You know what I'm saying? Walmart doesn't respect you. Target doesn't respect you. Like they want your money, right? And they're willing to do whatever to get as much money out of you as humanly possible. So let's go.
Worth fighting for. I was an absolute terror. Yeah. And the school was right.
I'm going to skip ahead. And this is the part that I really wanted to talk about. This is what is going to be in response to D.L. Hughley's comment on here. So let's listen to, we're going to go here. You select if you need generic Viagra or Cialis, the quantity you need. Right, let's go. I'll pick 100 milligram, thank you very much, and then their system will see if you qualify. Give it a second to find the best deals, and boom.
Whether we're talking about gifted kit, I'm separating them.
Let's go here. I appreciate y'all time. I'm gonna leave that there. And let's go and listen to what DL said again.
That may be the stupidest thing I've ever. And first off, I've heard enough from South Africans this year. That's enough. I'm like, between Elon Musk and Trump, I don't need to hear about race from two dudes from South Africa. I heard enough. Black schools and HBCUs and our system exist. And she could have said that virtually about every system that exists in America, from policing to banking to housing. Every single one is inundated with white supremacy. All of it. So, and the thing that I find that I resent the most is that our story always starts in the middle. HBCUs came as a result of what we couldn't have. Everywhere we live, every black neighborhood is where we were told to live. Everywhere. Even school, like they want integration some places. I bet you want it in the Super Bowl, because without black people, that shit would be rugby. So it's an interesting conversation to have, except that I think the outcome, I mean, where she lands is a bit disingenuous. It's specific. You can't just talk about education, because the only reason you get educated is to indoctrinate, right, is to be involved in the other systems.
My understanding was one of the underlying reasons why it was so important to integrate schools is because black schools were grossly underfunded.
And still are.
And still are. But by integrating, you're creating more of a level playing field where everybody's in the same school.
It should be the same.
What happened was whatever schools white kids could go to, when black kids started going there, they left and they took their resources with them. So they in fact became, look at every school, look at all the schools we go to that at one time, integration meant that we could come, and they left. Not only did they leave, they took their resources. So this notion that integration ever existed was wrong. White flight happened as soon as the integration started. And with them, they took their resources. So we still, in effect, have virtually the same thing.
I remember vividly the early 60s and seeing, people getting beaten over the heads with batons. I remember Mississippi and Alabama, where they wouldn't let black kids into schools. It's better today. There's still racism, but it has gotten better over the years.
That is undeniable. But we try to put someone. Ruby Bridges, who integrated schools in Alabama, Louisiana, is still alive. She's 71. She's still alive. So what America tends to do is act like it's so long ago. Yes, they don't wear hoods, and maybe they don't do the things that they did before. But some of it is still so entrenched, so some is so insidious that I think that people. This is my honest assessment of it. I don't think most white people agree with the motives of white supremacists and white nationalists. I don't think they like their words, but I think they agree with their goals, which is to keep white people in charge. I think that they don't agree with their motives. They don't might not agree with their terminology or their verbiage, but they most certainly agree that white people should be in charge. That may be this.
And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think white people want white people to be in charge over white people, and they don't care what happens to black people. The problem I have with what DL said is it's not even touching on the points that she's going to go into. Let's go into what she actually said. Bear with me.
Men's college hockey, Yale and Quinnipiac. Here comes Quinnipiac. Jeremy Wilmer spins and then the backhand shovel. Short side. Look at that. Get the whole defense on.
For solutions to real problems. We very seldom think that we've reached the wrong solution, right? Because we have a good intention. I really believe most human beings do. And in looking at some of your work, your speeches, your writing, and even society itself, even some of the things you're saying now, I found myself wondering, and this applies to America, and then maybe it'll go to other places in a different way because Finland ties in. Do you think that integration was the right move? Like, and now I'm separating two things because I know in America people are like, well, of course, I mean, there was racism and there's segregation, and I go, yeah, no, I'm separating them. Let's separate someone being oppressed and someone not being able to get a job and someone not being able to get a bank loan. Let's take all of those, the negative things away, because I'll put myself out personally and say, I think whether we're talking about gifted kids who are anomalous, let's say, to the norm, whether we are talking about and I mean anything that does not fit into a category, I think the part of the reason Finland is able to do it is because, have you been to Finland? It's
very homogeneous.
I've been to Finland. You know who's in Finland? Finnish people. That's it. That's it. And because they're all Finnish, there's an idea of like, no, we all head in the same direction. We all know what our actions mean. And that's a really powerful thing I've learned in communicating with other people. When I'm in a room with anyone where we start to tie together multiple things. So if I'm in a room with black people, already there's like an implicit trust because we know what certain actions, words, and vibes mean. And then you're in a room with another African. Already. Now, even if you shout at me, I know what your shout means. The same way an Italian knows what an Italian shout means.
Yeah.
Right? I know I'm prefacing it with a lot because it's a loaded question.
Yes.
But I would love to know if you think integration was the right solution, maybe, on the other side of, you know, what America, of civil rights.
Yeah.
So
no, I don't. And
if I can, and this is how I took it, right? You have desegregation, which is the removal of the ability for public spaces to be allowed to be limited to only white use, like water fountains, like public pools, like public schools, like whatever municipality, public libraries. The removal of the power structure to deny access to blacks to public facilities. That you have desegregation and then you have integration, right? Which is instead of funding black schools with federal dollars that are dilapidated and underfunded and, you know, not at the level that is necessary for to make it equal to white institutions, white public institutions, right? So you have the removal of the laws enabling the limits of public spaces to white people, and then you have the practice of moving black students from out of their black public schools and busing them into white schools. Did that work out, right? Did that in the long run get us any closer to what the ideal was, which is having institutions within the black community that are to a even playing field to their white counterparts? Everything that D.L. Hughley said shows that even still today, we are not where we are wanted to go. Black schools are still underfunded. But that was just me rewording. Let's get into her response. She said no. Let's go further.
And I don't think it's actually that controversial when if you understand that segregation and integration weren't the only options. Like those are within those two options, it may seem like integration is the more progressive. Like, of course, we don't want segregation. But again, when you're being integrated into institutions, into a culture that's a supremacist culture, that's a culture that feeds off of hierarchy, that feeds off of insecurity, anxiety, why are we being integrated into that? And so part of it is to question what we're being invited into. And so, again, when you think about the example of Finnish being homogenous, nation states are imagined. The national identity is not something that is, God-given. It's not something that, existed for eternity. These identities were created, maintained, made durable over time. And so part of the stretching our imagination is to recognize all of the things that have been made up, but made to seem immutable, fixed, intrinsic, including our national sort of identities. And so part of it is really like to denaturalize the things that we take for granted as somehow magically operating to make us feel connected to each other, and ask ourselves, how else can we be connected to engender this sense of solidarity where what I want for my kids, I also want for my neighbor's kids. I want for the kids who don't speak English. I want for the kids who are just arriving. And so again, to push ourselves, when you think about expanding our imagination, to make it more embracing of seeming differences that are not intrinsic, that are not something that are inevitable,
Now, a way you could... another way or an example of how the end result could have a tactic that was used. Let's bring up the housing crisis when Obama was in office, right? What did he do? He bailed out the banks instead of bailing out the American citizens who were losing their homes. Instead of giving the money to the institutions, they could have gave that money to the American citizens. Instead, they let the bank execs that were giving out all these loans that were they were paying out bonuses as their banks were crashing, and they were lending out fraudulently and giving out just outrageous loans to people that couldn't qualify for it. And when everything crashed, none of these execs went to jail. None of them served time. The banks themselves were bought out by bigger banks, saved by the American government, and the ones that bared the brunt of it were the Americans that didn't. The American people carried the load so that millionaires and billionaires could reap the benefits of them playing and betting against the American people. Really, they gave out these predatory loans, and these people foreclosed on, and a lot of these houses that they had were not worth the money that they were being sold for. But how they chose to go about correcting the course during the housing crash of, was it 08 or whatever, whenever Obama came into office, it was a better way of handling it, and it didn't happen. Just like with let's look at something. Of course, I have my little talking points here. So let's look at this. Good old Google. Oh snap! Do I need to? Okay. Oh, how do I zoom in? But I can do it this way. Go here. All right. So, boom. Look at this. The Supreme Court case Brown v. Board of Education outlawed segregation in schools in 1954, but many schools remain segregated for years. Right. So in 1954, schools were desegregated. Now, that on principle is not problematic at all for me, right? I have no problem with desegregation. My problem was what they did to resolve the funding crisis as far as schooling for black people. Instead of pouring money into black communities, just like today, they still don't pour money into, they don't open up the ability for black people to get, whether it be interest-free loans or even if there is interest on them, just give us the time to work and get established before we have to pay. Oh wait, yeah, boom, I'm back in here, baby. Yeah, instead of giving the ability to fund schools, you it took my mind right out. And instead of funding schools in black communities, instead of building up the black community, what they did was take black bodies and ship them out to white people to get their head bashed in. And then DL out here talking about desegregation and integration was some sort of a positive because Ruby Bridges went and desegregated schools. Honestly, the fact that she had to do that is so. I want to say this, and I don't want it to come off as, oh, never let. I love you, man. The fact that young girl had to go and desegregate schools and have U.S. Marshals back behind them. And it wasn't the entire time, right? Remember, the U.S. Marshals left, and that's when I'm spinning again. Let's stay where we're at. Taking black bodies out of the black community and putting them in white institutions, one, put black bodies at jeopardy of being boom. They never changed the structure of how we fund public schools. They always, how are public schools funded in inner cities still today? Because DL acknowledged that the funding for black schools has not changed. So how the idea of integration was wrong. And what? Let's listen to what he said again. All right.
Stupidest thing I've ever. And first off, I've heard enough from South Africans this year. That's enough.
There's no disagreement with that part. I'm tired of hearing South Africans. Whereas I don't have a problem with Trevor Noah or whatever. But Elon Musk got me tired of listening to South Africans. But
between Elon Musk and Trevor, I don't need to hear about race from two dudes from South Africa. I heard enough. Black schools and HBCUs and our system exist.
All right, and this is why I say it's emotional. When you bring up HBCUs, when we're talking about integration and desegregation, is idiotic. It's idiotic. It has nothing to do with the other. But for integrations, we would have more HBCUs. But what are we? Once you build up the idea of there is power in us having our own, and there is, just like there's power in there being a little Italy, being a Chinatown, being all those Mexican plazas in Norcross, Georgia. There's power in that. Even the Indian ones in Alpharetta, there's power in that. There's strength in being able to go to a place and not in there being a collective understanding, right? We may not agree on everything, but we know we got that cabinet full of Walmart bag or whatever grocery bags, right? We got that one drawer that got everything in it, right? That junk drawer, right? There's power in that. And there's nothing wrong with us having our own area. That doesn't mean that other people aren't welcome there, because that would be illegal. But we do have our spaces. If white people want a place where the only seasoning is mayonnaise, let them have that, right? Does that mean that we can't go there? No, that would be illegal. But they have their spaces. Familiarity. Thank you. Yes, there's a sense of familiarity.
And she could have said that virtually about every system that exists in America, from policing to banking to housing. Every single one is inundated with white supremacy, all of it. So, and the thing that I find that I resent the most is that our story always starts in the middle. HBCUs came as a result of what we.
And the thing about it is, he's responding to our video but he's only talking about the 5-minute portion. He's starting in the middle, nigga. What are you talking about? This is goofy.
Couldn't have. Everywhere we live, every black neighborhood is where we were told to live.
And again, I don't hate DL. I'm not trying to. I am calling them out, but I feel it's more bringing clarity. Like, bro, you're wrong on this. What? Don't be on top. Get deep down into it and find out what she's talking about. What angle is she coming from? Integration was not the tact to get what is necessary for the black community to depending on white infrastructure, instead of forcing the state to allow us to build our own, so that we can show there could be a model for them to improve how we educate our kids, to improve how we police our societies. If we were able to build up our own cities, not what they're doing in Atlanta, where they're I'm doing it again. We spinning away, but us having our own area that isn't exclusive to us, but is our area that we control the levers of power, where we could, try to innovate how we have our irrigation systems. How, you know, maybe we could start collecting rainwater so that in these areas where we don't have water sources, we have some sort of sustainability that isn't built solely on. These are just ideas, but it would be able to be done if we didn't have, you know, we didn't go and chase what white people have. We stayed where we were and forced the federal government to give us the money that Martin was talking about going to get, right? Ooh, and I feel like I'm going all over the place because it's like, you're not. Let me calm down.
Everywhere. Even school, like they want integration some places. I bet you want it in the Super Bowl because without black people,
what? That was him being funny, right? But that has nothing to do with nothing. Why are you bringing up the Super Bowl about segregation and integration? You goofball.
So it's
it's something about a nigga sitting in there. That's probably that look like what is it? Land Rover. Which one? Yeah, that looked like one of them ones, right? And with his burgundy leather seats, talking about how what we got today is better because people ain't getting their head bashed in. These kids can't read, and you're gonna say today is better? At least back in the day they could read and do basic arithmetic. We got a whole generation of niggas that can't sit still. They couldn't handle their emotions back then, but they at least could contain it. You know what I'm saying? We have a generation that, because we didn't build up our own, we allowed the white power structure to dictate what is an education, what is like. I'm about to spin again.
Interesting conversation to have, except that I think the outcome, I mean, where she lands is a bit disingenuous. It's specific. You can't just talk about education because the only reason you get
education is where integration was mainly happening. What are you talking about? What are we talking about? That was what the Brown versus the Board of Education, that it was about education. This is what I'm talking about. That is an emotional response to someone being factual, right? You may not like what she got to say, but my uncle told me somebody got to be able to tell you the hard truth, and the hard truth is, integration did not solve the problem. If anything, it just broadened the pool of people who weren't. Let me not say broadened the pool, because there were poor whites that had poor schools that are poorly funded still today, just like in the black community. You know what I'm saying? Instead of there being a proper funding of education, period, we just went to where the white power structure was, instead of building up our own and forcing the government to give us the money that was necessary. We just... and then now I sound like somebody that wants the Board of Education to be shut down. No, I don't want that. But I want there to be more room for there to be just... I don't agree with charter schools, but there has to be a broader understanding of how to educate people, right? Like they said out in... No, let's go back. Let's finish listening to him, and then we're going to go bounce back.
It's to be involved in the other systems.
My understanding was one of the underlying reasons why it was so important to integrate schools is because black schools were grossly underfunded.
And still are.
And still are. But by integrating, you're creating more of a level playing field where everybody's in the same school.
How? Back then you didn't create a level playing field. They had to go in there and get their brains bashed in. And still today, black schools that are in the inner city are not funded like their suburban counterparts. Let's go to let's go here. Inner city schools are typically receive significantly less funding per student compared to the suburban schools, primarily due to the reliance on property tax, which are generate less revenue in lower income urban areas, resulting in fewer resources available for inner city schools, like updated technology, smaller class sizes, and specialized programs. Compared to their suburban counterparts, this displays often leads to larger class sizes and fewer support services in inner city schools. So, to me, what that says is how we choose to fund public schooling benefits people who already have more money, whether or not they go to private school or not. If you have, and it's not even really, because you could live in a $500,000 school house, right, in Georgia, and still go to a poorly functioning school because they don't fund education in the southern states. They don't fund education anywhere. Really. All of it is failing, right? And that's why they want to do away with the public education, with the Board of Education, when really it's because you're choosing not to fund it, you idiots. And fund it in an effective way. You can have a state like Texas that has like over like $1 billion in surplus, but Houston schools are underfunded. Dallas schools are failing. Like, what are we talking about, man? And again, it's real funny to have a rich nigga go and tell a academic that, oh, what you're saying is disingenuous, and then be agreeing with what she's saying. You fool! You're a clown, bro. It is idiotic.
Should be the same.
What happened was whatever schools white kids could go to, when black kids started going there, they left and they took their resources with them. So they in fact became. Look at every school. Look at all the schools we go to that at one time integration meant that we could come, and they left. Not only did they leave, they took their resources. So this notion that integration ever existed was wrong. White flight happened as soon as integration.
So how? This is what I'm talking about. They use black faces to beat other black thought. They use black faces like DL to beat black people who are free thinkers. And not free thinkers in the sense of, oh, I'm just asking questions. People are actually trying to make change. DL's not offering anything different than what is already here. He's not even advocating for the Department of Education to maintain. You know what I'm saying? He's just saying what she's saying is disingenuous, not even understanding what she's talking about. Let's go back to what she is actually saying.
My sister-in-law lives in Japan. And again, it's one of those places that people think, oh, it's homogenous. It's, from the outside, people think everyone is, a shared identity. Yeah. But Japanese of Korean descent, among many other groups, are treated like shit. They're treated, it's discriminated in so many different areas of life, in education and healthcare. When two people go to marry, sometimes their families do a deep genealogical dive to find any Korean descent in the line before they. And so again, we are so creative in creating hierarchies and distinctions out of nothing, Why can't we channel that creativity to actually work in the opposite direction? If we're doing it to maintain hierarchies and division, perhaps we can do it to engender solidarity and connection, right? And I think it's a choice. When we give up our power and think, oh, this is something happening to us, we have to just navigate this crooked system as it is. I think, that only serves those who are currently benefiting from the status quo. And so I always have to ask myself, who does my pessimism serve?
I don't know what to
All right,
say.
I'm going a little further back.
Controversial.
So
You know who's in Finland fighting, and even society itself, even some of the things you're saying, whether we're talking about.
Hold on.
So if I'm in a room with black people, already there's like an implicit trust because we know what certain actions, words, and vibes mean. And then you're in a room with another African on the other side of, what America, of civil rights.
Yeah. No, I don't. And I don't think it's actually that controversial when if you understand that segregation and integration weren't the only options. Like those are within those two options, it may seem like integration is the more progressive. Like, of course, we don't want segregation. But again, when you're being integrated into institutions, into a culture that's a supremacist culture, that's a culture that feeds off of hierarchy, that feeds off of insecurity, anxiety, why are we being integrated into that? And so part of it is to question what we're being invited into. And so, again, when you think about the example of Finnish being homogenous, nation states are imagined. The national identity is not something that is, God-given. It's not something that, existed for eternity. These identities were created, maintained, made durable over time. And so part of the stretching our imagination is to recognize all of the things that have been made up, but made to seem immutable, fixed, intrinsic, including our national sort of identities. And so part of it is really like to denaturalize the things that we take for granted as somehow magically operating to make us feel connected to each other and ask ourselves, how else can we be connected to engender this sense of solidarity where what I want for my kids, I also want for my neighbor's kids. I want for the kids who don't speak English. I want for the kids who are just arriving. And so again, to push ourselves, when you think about expanding our imagination, to make it more embracing of seeming differences that are not intrinsic, that are not something that are inevitable, My sister-in-law lives in Japan. And again, it's one of those places that people think.
So again, the idea that acknowledging that integration got us no closer to the desired goal is not disingenuous.
Integration started. And with them, they took their resources. So we still, in effect, have virtually the same thing.
I remember vividly.
And another thing that rubbed me wrong about this, I see this guy as no different than a Vlad TV. He's just a part of the accepted establishment, right? This dude is a mud flinger that, whatever similarities there may be, I'm not even going. You're going on this show to bash another black person. What sense does that make? Calling her disingenuous, saying what she's saying is stupid, when you're agreeing with every point she's making without even recognizing that you're doing it. And you don't like that she brought up education. That was the topic of conversation. What are we? But to be honest, this one, it annoyed me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all could tell. It pissed me off. So we're going to move on for this one. I don't remember spending so much time on, epic crash out. Oh, we gotta look at Lord Jamal. We gotta do it. We gotta do it. Especially after his flat earther debacle. That one, I kind of enjoy seeing that scientist dog walk him like that. So let's go ahead and skip ahead to. Let's see. And shout out to whoever video this is that we're watching. We appreciate everything you do.
To the top. But again, I don't even fully blame him. I feel like it was Fat Boy, Dante Nero. I feel like Godfrey is somebody that's easily manipulated.
I'm not about to listen. Let's go to Lord Jamal's actual. I don't even know how to spell dude's name. Oh, yeah. Is this him? Nah, hold on. I think this is him. So let's go here. See videos. We might have to go back to that video because I'm not about to go look through all this stuff.
This is horrible. Listen to what he's about to say. He says that Godfrey is free. Let's skip.
Tell the story of Godfrey is somebody that's easily manipulated. I've done it. Okay. First of all, let's tell the story.
Whoa, brother. I don't know. And men manipulating another man, that's a little sus. You know what I'm saying?
You're done.
You done it?
I've seen him do it.
Bro, what that?
That's what I'm saying. That's
easily manipulated.
Don't lick your lips and say that, bro. What is going on?
First of all, let's tell the story of, since we want to tell private stories, let's tell the stories of how the Vlad protest actually happened. Okay? And this is word to my seeds. Something that...
You gotta bring your kids into that, nigga.
Protest actually happened. Okay? And this is word to my seeds.
Oh my God.
Something that this guy doesn't have. But anyway, when we're talking on the phone with Vlad
need to have kids,
about,
man.
Listen, you need to fucking apologize or else. You know what I mean? First of all, I'm the one that called Godfrey like, yo, we need to fucking, you know what I mean? We need to stand together and do wham, bam, boom, boom. I can hear the apprehension, but he's like, okay. You know what I mean? So we call him. We tell Vlad what it is. At some point in the conversation, Godfrey talking about, yeah, well, maybe we'll just take a break for a little while. I'm like, break? We ain't taking no breaks. Like, yo, if you don't do this, we not fucking with you. And I painted us in the corner, y'all. I did that. Not him. I painted us in the corner. And he kind of just, you know what I mean? He just kind of went with it because he knew he really had no choice at that time.
Bro, he was standing on Vlad Nalded on the attracting black business.
You know what I mean? If he would have went against that, that would have been a bad move. Yeah.
That could have been just a business decision.
I'm the one that painted him in the corner to the Vlad shit.
When you say paint him in the corner, what you mean by that, brother? I don't know. I don't even really know hit dude from anywhere. I ain't never listened to it. I don't know if he's a rapper. I don't know if he like a well-known drug dealer, a former drug dealer. I don't want to put that on him. I don't know who dude is. I seen him on Godfrey shows a whole bunch of times. I've seen clips of him on Vlad a whole bunch of times. And I don't know the significance, brother.
So now, you best believe he's going back to Vlad. That's all I could say. But listen, salute to you, sir.
Bro,
mission accomplished. You did your thing, and yeah. See, people also mistake acquaintances and friends.
I've seen him do it.
Bro, I thought you cried and cried and cried about me. Well, a 5 minute quaint.
Yeah. See, people also mistake acquaintances and friends. I'm not going to say that he was my friend like that. Again, when I asked him to take the joint down, I don't necessarily felt like he did it because of a friend. That was kind of, yeah.
Godfrey never, my understanding, he never put the video up. Why? He didn't have anything to take down. What was up was what yeah, I don't even think they did it live. Or even if they did do it live, him taking it down, that's a personal decision based off of your request. You know what I'm saying? You ain't make nobody do nothing. You know what I'm saying? How you gonna make another man do? You gotta put a gun to that man's head while he right in front of his desk and have him do something like that. You know what I'm saying? And Godfrey said, we didn't put it out. You know what I'm saying? Not that because of you, because he saw you as a friend. What did get put out was by the professor nigga, and you look like an idiot because you was out there talking like you was. Don't go toe to toe with a scientist.
With due respect, shut the hell up. And I handled the shit the way he handled it behind the scenes.
Hold on.
Because a friend wouldn't have handled the shit the way he handled it behind the scenes. But yeah. You live and you learn. Again, no good deed goes unpunished. And this has, and no, I am not off the flat earth shit. Just because of the dumb shit that happened that day. Again, I was off my square. Now,
You're done.
You were off your square. Excuses.
What does that mean, bro? Like, I was off my square. Nigga, it would be off the square to think that the earth is flat. Nigga, like, that's, you wanna, don't fucking me about that, bro.
that's my cross to bear for now.
You can't handle the weed? What that? That's what you're saying. You can't handle your weed. You can't handle the smoke. You was too high. You sound like one. Nah, I ain't gonna bash nobody that can't handle weed no more. All love to the people that can't handle the blunt.
That changes nothing. We still don't live on a fucking spinning ball. Nothing was proved that day other than, I didn't memorize certain technical terms, scientific terms. But yeah.
Now this make me want to go
debate was lost. No debate even really happened. So yeah.
This made me want to go over it again.
But y'all can feel good about this one. Y'all can feel, yeah, that's right. Flat power, A1 Dizzy. Y'all can
flat power is wild.
Whatever adrenaline rush this gives you, soak it in, take it in, love it. He said, what about them crepuscular rays? Yeah, what about them?
Wait,
what about those crepuscular rays?
That's not my chat.
Explain how those
that's somebody else, yeah.
How they can exist from a sun that's...
If a man really hated ads...
I hate ads so much. I'm really about to just go ahead and get premium so I don't gotta deal with this no more. I really do hate ads. Like, and then it's like ads that I would never use. What is that for?
We'll wait, Mr. Scientist. Can we talk about crepuscular rays for a second? Because listen, if y'all can prove to me
right, he talking that
we're on a spinning ball.
Okay, non-scientific. Because you want us to prove so. This is the problem. I said this last episode. It's hard to win a debate with a smart person, and it's impossible. You're a victim. Here we go, CSI. Shadow. Whatever type of, unless it's like just logic and perception.
I ain't gonna hold you guys, bro. I can't wait till I get to the point where I'm able to have the production side where I want it to be. And it's coming soon. We got plans in the making, bruh. I'm gonna get me my soundboard so I can have my sound drops. You know what I'm saying? It's coming. It soon come. It soon come. You know?
See with your own eyes. Just look up at the moon. Like, come on, man. A flight from...
Hey, I'll go with it. I'm not married to this shit. But all signs show that they're lying. And I just want to say, right,
Yo, the flat earth model is the dumbest model. It makes no sense.
Brothers in the 5% Nation, the Nation of Gods and Earths and all of that. You know, it's ironic that we are supposed to be the ones in the small minority that have the truth. That we don't necessarily, we are not.
You go get a damn man. You is years.
85s because we're supposed to know better.
Yeah, you're supposed to know better with that 9th grade.
Are damn near like 85s when it comes to this. And I'm gonna say many because not all, because there's many that actually do know the science.
You know, another thing is, if you don't understand and know the science for yourself, why are you advocating for it? You know what I'm saying? Why are you speaking? I would never want to speak or be caught out giving my opinion on something that... I'm not saying you have to fully have... that you have to have, like, a deep background in something to have an opinion on it. But if you don't have at least a foundational understanding of what the topic that you're speaking on, what is the benefit of you speaking on it? What are you exposing people to if you're not at least giving them verbiage to understand? You know what I'm saying? What's the point?
It's just funny. And now, what's even funnier, right, is I see people, it's like history repeating itself. The same way they wanted to get rid of the Father Allah from the Nation of Islam. Oh, yeah. They want to get rid of me from the Nation of Gods and Earths. Same way they wanted to get rid of Malcolm.
This nigga not comparing himself to Malcolm. No. Not Malcolm. Nah, Malcolm.
Oh, yeah.
Man was killed in front of his family, advocating for black people. What? You ain't what? yo, niggas really have like the unmitigated gall of unmitigated. Look at me. I'm over here getting tongue tied. It's 3:00 in the morning. I'm tripping. Why do I do this to myself every time? I'm like, I'm gonna get there, bah. I don't know what time I'll be saying I'm gonna do this by. Never happens. Oh, but we got time now, baby. We gonna put on. We got time more than we ever had before, baby. Oh man, it's a new day.
They want to get rid of me from the Nation of Gods and Earths. Same way they wanted to get rid of Malcolm.
Get him out of here! He's got no place in here! Get rid of him!
Like the nerve of you. What the nerve of you?
Yeah.
We gotta bring back shame. These niggas should not feel comfortable comparing themselves to Malcolm, comparing themselves to Dr. King. We gotta bring back shame. There has to be something that. Let me finish this. I'm losing all sense of decorum.
Very, very ironic.
Yo, remember the last? He's like trying to come on.
Applaud the Father for standing up and, thinking for himself and going against the grain inside the...
Bro, if you don't have a goal when you're going against, just like we Just like I was talking about my point about earlier, having black faces in high places means nothing if they're not being actual agents of change. If you're not changing anything, you're just going against the grain just to go against the grain. It's just like, right. Let's take a haircut, right? If I go against the hair, the grow pattern of my hair, right, and I just go backwards, nigga, when it comes to being able to blend, I done jack myself all up because I cut it so that I going against the grain with the haircuts. Like, let's say your hair lays this way. Usually your barber's going to cut, especially at the top of your head, they're going to cut it this way because it's going to go along with the way that your hair lays. If they go against this way and they push your hair up, it's going to cut it shorter so that by the time when it lays down, you're going to look like this. How I know? Because I went against the grain, nigga. Yeah. Instead of cutting down like that, I said zzz, zzz. And I went to cosmetology school. I understand the I understand what it is to go against and with. Like, if we just going against for the sake of going against, we cut ourselves short. Let me be the walking example, nigga. Let's be purposeful when we go against. If we're going to go against, we're not just going against for the sake of saying that we're going against the grain. It's purposeful. It's with reason. It's with a goal in mind, nigga. We're not just doing stuff for the sake of saying I'm doing it.
He had a lot of these brothers.
And you know this nigga bull. We watching all language. I'm gonna swallow that. You know this nigga bull. See, he tried to come up again. You know he ain't talking about nothing because the nigga, when he really in his bull, he just turned his head and like, yeah, I'm trying to draw you into this dog water because I ain't got nothing to say. I ain't saying nothing.
Thing that they thought was bad. It's very interesting. But again, I love no, it's not about believe the knowledge. It's about I'm actually showing that I do believe the knowledge, sir. I'm actually showing that I love the lesson so much that I want them to be 100% right and exact.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Because we say that.
All right, I'm good. I'm not listening to this anymore. We've all lost 8 brain cells just listening to this nut talk. But again, y'all, I appreciate love you, man. But that's the end of the show today. I'm gonna leave you with this one. I appreciate anybody that came through and spent some time with me. If you didn't spend no time with me, man, fuck yours, brother. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment. I'm used to waiting. Beyond that, man, I'm tired. I'm about to go get in my bed. You know what I'm saying? I had fun tonight. I needed to do this. I needed to get something else. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to get one. But it is what it is. But y'all have a good night, and that's the end of the show, y'all. Bye.
I'm used to